Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. The Other Side lets you hear directly from the most connected players and observers across the spectrum of politics in Mississippi. From breaking news to political strategy to interviews with candidates and elected officials, we'll bring you facts, perspectives, and context that helps you cut through the noise and understand all sides of the story.
Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm here today with my colleague. I'm Bobby Harrison, by the way. In case nobody knows, I'm here with my colleagues, Taylor Vance. Taylor, how you doing?
I'm good, Bobby.
And of course, Geoff Pender. Now, Taylor and I are in the comfort of the Blue Sky Studios, but Geoff is in beautiful Florence. Geoff, you okay down there?
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, that's Florence, Mississippi, not Italy, but...
Home of Jimmy Webb and Kate Reeves.
Well, look, we may talk about a couple of things, but we're fresh off of the Neshoba County Fair. It was an off year in terms of state elections. We got, of course, the presidential election, but there was no big state races outside of some judicial races. But still, it was an interesting fair, guys. Geoff, why don't you start us off? It was almost, the interest was almost more in what was going on off the Founders Square stage than what was going on the stage.
Yeah, sure. For one thing, it looks like everybody's running for governor. Pretty much everyone.
Right now.
No, a good percentage of them, but one potential candidate who really for the first time said publicly he was a potential candidate is billionaire Thomas Duff, the richest man in the state. Both he and his brother are the two richest people in the state. It's been no great secret that he's toyed with the idea of running, I think, even in past cycles. But yeah, he was making the rounds at the Neshoba Fair, which is something a little noteworthy. And when asked, he said he is seriously interested in making a run. And of course, a couple other folks indicated, I believe. State Auditor Chad White used some of the similar terminology, seriously considering a run. That also has not been a huge secret, but Delbert Hoseman was a little more coy about it, but said he's wanting to run for something, and he's term limited at lieutenant governor.
I was going to say, if I could interject a little bit,
yeah.
I think what he said was he kind of winked at us and said, I want to run for something else, but I'm term limited for lieutenant governor. And I don't think you usually see statewide officials downgrade to a lower office. I don't think
Right.
Delbert Hoseman is going to announce he's running for ag commissioner
Or his old office
secretary of state. I think there's really only one path there, and that's the governor's mansion. But
Yeah. We also had Agriculture Commissioner Andy Gibson. Again, no secret there. I think he's making such considerations. Attorney General Lynn Fitch is often brought up and thought to be considering a run. Now, she did not speak at the fair this year. So anyway, this long way out to 2027, there's already a lot of jockeying going on. And with an open seat, that's kind of how it works.
Well, it's going to be two open seats.
I was going to say, can I ask y'all, I mean, has there ever been sort of you can't really call it an election cycle, but has there ever been a period like this where we're so far out from a statewide election where you just have
sure.
where
Sure. Again, pretty much any time there's going to be an open governor's seat, you start seeing jockeying like this. Sometimes when there's not an open seat, you see
Sure.
jockeying well in advance. I think this is probably typical trajectory. Nobody's all in, or I'm definitely running and I'm putting out yard signs or anything like that. But testing the waters, That's fairly typical, and a little fundraising, or as I think have heard rumblings, a lot of fundraising's going on. But one interesting thing on this, though, back to Mr. Duff, considering a lot of people wonder if he does get in, if he's gonna, he would be running as a Republican. All the ones we mentioned so far would be. A lot of people think he might clear the decks, and as I've heard people put it, someone who could stroke a $15 or $20 million check to their own campaign without batting an eye, that probably would tend to ward off a lot of evil spirits or other folks considering a run if that does become the case. I think you would see a great winnowing of the field and probably people considering some other options if that were the case.
Well, and one person we didn't talk about, I do think this is a little unusual year, back to Taylor's question and then sort of morphing into what you're talking about with Duff. This is unusual in the sense that we have, it happens on occasion, but we do have the two high seats, governor and lieutenant governor, are going to be open this election cycle.
Right.
And I can't recall a time where every statewide office holder, maybe, and I may have to apologize because he may end up being the next governor, but every statewide office holder except for Treasurer McCray is considered a potential candidate for governor or lieutenant governor. Michael Watson, the Secretary of State, I've heard him talk about it, and he spoke at the Neshoba County Fair also, and I heard him talked about it as a candidate for governor, but also a candidate for lieutenant governor. I think if he was running for lieutenant governor, he'd probably be the odds-on favorite for that seat.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And as far as Duff, he runs. This is purely speculation, but I could see everybody dropping out except for I think Gibson. He was real coy at the fair, but he sounded to me most like a gubernatorial candidate of of all the speakers.
Right. He was the only one wearing a cowboy hat.
He was the only one, and he had the crowd standing up yelling, "Fight, fight, fight!"
Yes.
Yeah, so I just see him as I just think he's running for if he can. I think the big thing for him will be the ability to raise money. I think he's already started, and so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. I was just chatting with sort of a friend the other day about who may or may not stay in the race if Tommy Duff actually does run, and they just, and kind of what the donor class would do, and they just said very succinctly, money tends to follow money, and so I think it would be interesting to see what happens, but I think if you have someone willing to, as you said, Geoff, drop $10 million, $15 million of their own money into their own campaign, I think the donors would tend to line up behind that candidate. So it would be very interesting to see what happens.
Right.
Geoff, you've interviewed, spent a good bit of time with him a few weeks ago. But he's in ways we know a lot about him, but he's never run for office. He was appointed to the college board, the IHL board, by former Governor Bryan. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think been on several boards, as I recall, and a very philanthropic donor to numerous causes, and also a big donor to a lot of Republican campaigns over the years. Huge donor. And I should say I have spent some time with him, but that was focused primarily on a county drug court graduation, and like many others, I'm not really sure of his policy position on on too many issues. He's, to be a really high profile guy and involved in a lot of things on the fringes. He's kind of a political unknown, not a household name by any means across Mississippi. And again, his politics, he's, I guess you'd say, kind of kept him fairly close to the vest. And IHL stuff would be his, the primary things he's been directly involved in. So, at this point, kind of a political unknown.
Yeah, and we assume, and he probably is a political conservative, but during his tenure on the college board, he was, I would describe him as a leader on that board, and he was kind of he was a mainstream type of, he governed kind of the universities from kind of a mainstream perspective. So, I for whatever that's worth.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, look, there was a lot of speculation about future political races at the fair, but there was a little policy spoken about. You had Lieutenant Governor Hostman coming out strongly for a cut in the grocery tax, the 7% tax on groceries. The Governor Reeves, who is, of course, no one's, he can't run for re-election. So I guess in future podcast we'll be talking about what he's going to do after he leaves the governor's office, but he is still touting an income tax cut. But the lieutenant governor pretty much said at the fair that it was more important to work on cutting the grocery tax at this point than the income tax.
And then I believe you also had Speaker Jason White, who has formed a committee on cutting both the income and the grocery tax. But I think he has primarily focused on cutting the income tax. But I was speaking to him afterwards, and he said he hopes that he can find some type of compromise with the governor and the lieutenant governor that is sort of an overall net reduction in cutting state taxes. So it will be interesting to see how that policy debate sort of shapes out during the 2025 legislative session.
Yeah, and and we shouldn't forget that as our political leadership is talking about cutting taxes, we're in the midst of phasing in still the largest tax cut in the state's history, and it won't be fully phased in until the end of 2025. So it's kind of going through uncharted territory to a sense. So, in addition to that, we have a tax cut that was passed, I think, Geoff, was it 2016?
Business inventory.
Yeah, not the franchise.
Franchise and inventory tax.
That's still being phased in and won't be completely phased in until 2029. So, so you need kind of a playbook to keep up with all the tax cuts that's going on in this state.
One thing I've noticed in this debate, there is and will be debate on certainly eliminating the state income tax, but I don't recall anyone to date in leadership has really come out against a cut in the grocery sales tax on groceries. People have said it's going to be very difficult, and municipalities have expressed and will continue, I'm sure, great heartburn over that. A lot of little towns, their tax base, is primarily what they make off the grocery store and Walmart in a little town. So, but it sounds like I said, no one's just flat out against cutting the grocery tax. So at this point, this far out, if I had to wager, I think we may see something along those lines, probably a reduction, not elimination of the grocery tax. But I would say that may be the more popular among the masses movement as it gets going.
Yeah, all our surrounding states, which had high grocery taxes like Mississippi does, have cut or reduced their grocery tax over the past couple of years. So we're kind of a outlier. And the last time this was seriously debated, was our guest from a week ago. Haley Barbour was governor, and he was against cutting the grocery tax, and he almost single-handedly blocked it for a couple of sessions when there was a lot of momentum to do it. But yeah, you may be right. I think in his heart of hearts, Governor Reeves would far, well, he'd probably say this, would far favor cutting the income tax, phasing that out instead of cutting the grocery tax. But I think if the grocery tax cut comes to his desk, he'll be hard pressed not to sign it into law.
Right. I think he's said as much in the past. He's basically, adopted the opinion from what I remember that there's never really been a tax cut that he does not like, and that he will usually sign a tax cut into law if it comes to his desk. But yes, I think he would far prefer the income tax to be eliminated first before signing any other type of tax cut measure into law.
Of course, I guess what's going on, we don't need
there's a philosophical amongst Republicans, there's long been a philosophical debate of shifting from income things such as income tax more to sales or user type tax, as a way of, I guess you would say, forcing people who don't pay much in income tax or whatever to carry more of the load. So I'm sure that debate in some shape, form, or fashion will be brought up as well.
Yeah, two other things I thought was pretty obvious at the fair is I think House Speaker Jason White indicated that Medicaid expansion was still going to be an issue in the 2025 session starting this January. And Lieutenant Governor Hosemann also indicated they were going to continue to work on that. So, of course, it didn't happen this past session because they couldn't agree on all the details. And and Governor Tate Reeves made it clear, not during his speech, I guess, but after his speech,
his interview afterwards with reporters,
that he still opposes it.
Yeah, I think I asked him. I said, Governor, the Speaker of the House has said he wants to continue to push for Medicaid expansion and even wants to find a compromise with you. I wanted to check in to see if he had some type of conversion. And he laughed and said that he has not had any type of conversion and that he is still opposed to it. And so I guess the question now with that is twofold. One, it will be, who's going to win the White House in November, and then what impact will that have on a potential, CMS waiver if the legislature passes a Medicaid expansion bill with, say, a work requirement. And then two, just if the Democratic ticket wins the race, then what does that do with the overall compromise that's reached, that could be reached next session between the House and the Senate? I think it's the prevailing thought that the Senate will pass what they passed last year right off the bat, which is go up to 99% of the federal poverty level. And then the House, I think, will pass some version of the final agreement that they tried to pass last year. And so it will be interesting to see how the negotiations go there.
Yeah, it appeared to me that the Senate in particular kept on saying, well, Donald Trump's going to win the White House, and he'll grant us this waiver to have a work requirement. And obviously, we don't know who's going to win the White House. And from my perspective, it's not clear that Donald Trump would grant that waiver. So, right. But at any rate, the November election might clear some of that up, especially if the Democrat wins the White House. The work requirement might be less of an issue in the 2025 session.
Right.
Yeah. And the other thing that stuck out to me at the fair was that all of the statewide officials who spoke liked Donald Trump.
Or at least they say they like him.
Well,
I think you could safely say that.
Yeah.
They all talked about the November election and how important it was to elect. I think what you heard so often was Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. The other thing,
Either that or how important it is to vote against Joseph Biden.
Right.
Yeah, or Vice President Harris now.
Oh well, yeah. As it is now.
Yeah.
The other thing that stuck out to me was that even this far out, some of the statewide officials who may or may not be rivals in the next election cycle aren't afraid to throw a few punches right now. We had State Auditor Shad White and Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann make a few jabs at each other. I believe it was the Wednesday of the fair.
Yeah, before we go, let's kind of recap those. Auditor White spoke right before Lieutenant Governor Hosemann. He blamed the Lieutenant Governor, or I don't know if he blamed him by name, but he said the Lieutenant Governor's office for killing legislation to limit DEI.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in state, in public bodies, mainly universities.
Yeah.
And
if he didn't name him by name in his speech, I don't recall, he made very clear afterward in social media that he was referring to Hosemann, who I believe he called DEI Delbert.
Right. And then I believe we asked the Lieutenant Governor if he had heard the state auditor speak about that, and he sort of laughed and said, "No, I didn't listen to it, but I was surprised." I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he said, "I'm surprised he came and spoke today. I figured that he would be on a book tour."
Yeah,
which is an obvious reference to the state auditor's new book, Mississippi Swindle, about the welfare scandal.
Oh, you're giving it a plug.
I'm not giving it a plug. I'm just making it very clear what he was talking about.
And that's about the welfare scandal. Before that, Taylor, though, I thought it was funny. Jeff and I were sitting next to each other. We laughed at it when Lieutenant Governor Hosemann came out to the podium. First thing he did was lower the microphone and said something to I had this short guy on the stage before me.
Right. So.
Yeah, but and of course, universities say I want to add this that what Auditor White says is going on with DEI, which he claims that they're brainwashing college students through DEI, and they say they kind of scoff at that. There's nothing like that going on. It's all in his fantasy, but there. Well, look, what else happened at the fair, guys? You want to talk about? Or
it was hot.
It was hot.
I think when you talk about the Neshoba Fair, you're supposed to mention that it was hot.
It was hot, and that there's the usual red clay is there. That hasn't gone away.
Yeah, I was surprised at the crowd on Thursday. I just assumed since there was no and competitive races that the crowd would be smaller, but it was a big crowd, and we also there is the Roger Wicker, Republican U.S. Senator, is on the ballot in November. And his opponent
Ty Pinkins
was at the fair and gave us a speech that Taylor wrote about, and then I think 4 of the 5 candidates for the Central District Supreme Court race, which may be the most, maybe the most competitive race in the state, an important race. There were also Jim Kitchen, Jennifer Brannon, and the 2
Ceola James, and then Byron Carter
were all at the fair. James Kitchen is the incumbent and is running for re-election, and Jennifer Brannon is considered his chief opponent. She's a Republican state senator from there in Neshoba County.
Yeah. So lots of politicking going on, and you're right. It was a big crowd for what would be considered an off year, even though there are some elections on the ballot. It's not a statewide election year.
Well, look, Geoff, stay safe down there in Florence. And appreciate your time. You guys have a good week.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thanks, guys.
As we cover the biggest political stories in the state, you don't want to miss an episode of The Other Side. We'll bring you more reporting from every corner of the state, sharing the voices of Mississippians and how they are impacted by the news. So what do we need from you, the listener? We need your feedback and support. If you listen to the podcast on a player like iTunes or Stitcher, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review. We also have an email in which you can share your feedback. That address is podcast@MississippiToday.org. Y'all can also reach out to me or any of my colleagues through social media or email. And as always, thank you for your feedback and support. Subscribe to our weekly podcast on your favorite podcast app or stream episodes online at MississippiToday.org/theotherside. For the Mississippi Today team, I'm Adam Ganeshow. The Other Side is produced by Mississippi Today and engineered by Blue Sky Studios. We hope you'll join us for our next episode.